The morning sun cast long shadows across forward operating base Scorpion as Staff Sergeant Maria Santos carefully laid out her cleaning kit on the worn wooden table. The Barrett M82A1 rested before her like a sleeping giant, its dark metal gleaming despite the desert dust that seemed to coat everything in this corner of Afghanistan. At 57 inches long and weighing nearly 30 pounds, the rifle commanded respect from everyone who saw it. But to Maria, it was simply her most trusted companion. She had been awake since 04:30, same as every day for the past 8 months. While most of the base still slept, Maria found peace in these quiet moments with her weapon. The routine never changed. First, she would inspect every inch of the rifle, checking for any signs of wear or damage. Then came the careful process of cleaning and maintenance that kept the Barrett firing true at distances that would make most soldiers dizzy just thinking about them. Maria pulled the bolt carrier group free and set it aside. Her movements were smooth and practiced, the result of thousands of hours spent with this particular rifle. She had requested this specific Barrett when she arrived at the base, serial number 12847. The armorer had looked at her strangely when she asked for that exact weapon, but Maria knew what she was doing. She had fired this rifle during advanced sniper training at Fort Benning, and she knew its quirks better than she knew her own heartbeat. The cleaning rod slid down the barrel with a soft scraping sound. Maria worked methodically, pushing patches soaked in gun oil through the rifling until they came out clean. 22 years old and already considered one of the best marksmen in her battalion, she treated her weapon maintenance like a religious ceremony. Other soldiers might rush through cleaning their M4s, but the Barrett demanded perfection. "Santos, you're up early again." The voice belonged to Corporal Jake Morrison, a fellow sniper who had become her closest friend on the base. He carried 2 steaming cups of coffee and set one down next to her cleaning kit. "Same time every day," Maria replied without looking up from her work. She was examining the trigger assembly, checking for any grit or wear that might affect her shots. "Sleep in and you might miss something important." Jake sat down across from her and watched as she continued her inspection. He had learned not to interrupt Maria during her morning ritual. The woman was dedicated to her craft in a way that impressed even the veteran non-commissioned officers who had been in the Army for 20 years. In the 8 months since arriving at FOB Scorpion, she had never missed a day of cleaning and maintenance. "Got word from Captain Rodriguez last night," Jake said, sipping his coffee. "We're going out again tomorrow. There's been movement in the valley near Checkpoint Charlie. Intel thinks it might be an IED team." Maria nodded as she began reassembling the Barrett. Her hands moved without conscious thought, fitting each component back into place with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker. She had broken down and rebuilt this rifle so many times that she could probably do it blindfolded. The thought made her smile slightly. "Distance?" she asked, sliding the bolt carrier group back into position. 1,200 meters, maybe more. Perfect for the Barrett." Maria finished reassembling the rifle and shouldered it, checking the scope alignment through muscle memory. The loopholed Mark IV scope had been zeroed to her exact specifications, calibrated for the specific ammunition she preferred. Federal Lake City 660 grain rounds, each one hand-selected for consistency. At extended ranges, even tiny variations in bullet weight could mean the difference between a clean shot and a miss. 1,200 meters, she repeated, more to herself than to Jake. "That's a good distance for the Barrett. Far enough to keep us safe, close enough to be certain of the shot." Jake had seen Maria shoot at ranges that would challenge most military snipers. During training exercises, she had consistently hit targets at distances exceeding 1,500 meters. Her longest confirmed shot had been at 1,600 meters, a target roughly the size of a dinner plate that she had struck on her first attempt. The achievement had earned her recognition from the battalion commander and a recommendation for advanced sniper training. But Maria didn't shoot for recognition or awards. She shot because lives depended on her accuracy. Every mission, every patrol, every convoy that left the base might encounter enemy fighters. When they did, Maria's job was to provide overwatch and eliminate threats before they could harm American soldiers. It was a responsibility she carried without complaint, but never without the weight of understanding what her decisions meant. "You ever think about what you'll do when you get home?" Jake asked. It was a question soldiers often asked each other during quiet moments, a way of reminding themselves that this deployment would eventually end. Maria set the Barrett back on the table and picked up her shot record book. The small green notebook contained detailed records of every round she had fired in combat, along with weather conditions, range estimates, and target descriptions. Military regulations required snipers to maintain these records, but Maria's book went far beyond what was required. She recorded everything: wind direction and speed, temperature, humidity, even the time of day for each shot. "Haven't really thought about it," she said, flipping through pages covered with her neat handwriting. "Maybe I'll stay in the Army, try for Special Forces. Or maybe I'll become a police officer, someone who needs people who can shoot straight." Jake nodded. He had seen Maria's shooting scores during qualification tests, and they were consistently perfect or near perfect. On the day she arrived at FOB Scorpion, she had fired 5 shots at 500 meters and put all 5 rounds through a hole smaller than a quarter. The range sergeant had initially accused her of lying about the distance until he personally walked downrange and measured it himself. "The brass noticed good shooting," Jake said. "Word gets around when someone can shoot like you do." Maria closed the shot record book and secured it in her gear. She had heard rumors that officers sometimes reviewed sniper records, looking for soldiers with exceptional performance to recommend for special assignments or training opportunities. But she didn't shoot well to impress officers. She shot well because soldiers' lives depended on it. The sun was fully up now, and the base was beginning to stir with the sounds of morning activity. Vehicles started their engines in the motor pool, soldiers headed to the chow hall for breakfast, and radio chatter began crackling from the communications tent. Another day was beginning at Forward Operating Base Scorpion, and Maria Santos was ready for whatever it might bring. She secured the Barrett in its case and gathered her cleaning supplies. Every piece of equipment had its designated place in her wall locker, organized with the same precision she brought to her shooting. Cleaning rods, patches, gun oil, bore brushes, and specialized tools all had specific locations where she could find them even in complete darkness. "I'm going to grab some breakfast," Jake said, standing up and stretching. "You coming?" "In a few minutes," Maria replied. "I want to check my gear one more time." Jake nodded and walked toward the chow hall, leaving Maria alone with her thoughts. She opened her wall locker and surveyed her equipment. Everything was clean, organized, and ready for use. Her ghillie suit hung from hooks on the left side, carefully maintained and modified with local vegetation. Her spotting scope sat in its case, foam padding protecting the delicate optics. Range-finding equipment, spare batteries, and emergency medical supplies all had their designated places. But it was the small collection of badges and certificates on the right side of the locker that drew her attention. Her expert marksmanship badge gleamed against the metal, a testament to her shooting ability that she had earned during basic training. Next to it was her completion certificate from the Army's basic sniper course, where she had graduated 3rd in a class of 47 students. But the badge that meant the most to her was the Combat Action Badge, awarded to soldiers who had engaged in combat with enemy forces. Maria had earned hers during her second week at FOB Scorpion, when she had provided overwatch for a convoy that came under attack near the village of Kal Eye now. Her shots that day had eliminated 3 enemy fighters and allowed the convoy to reach safety without casualties. Each badge represented months or years of training, preparation, and dedication. Maria had enlisted in the Army because she wanted to serve her country, but she had become a sniper because she discovered she had a natural talent for precision shooting. During basic training, her drill sergeants had noticed her exceptional marksmanship scores and recommended her for specialized training. The path to becoming a sniper had been challenging both physically and mentally. The training pushed soldiers to their limits, testing not just their shooting ability but their patience, discipline, and mental toughness. Many candidates dropped out during the weeks of instruction, unable to handle the pressure or meet the demanding standards. Maria had not only completed the course but had excelled, earning recognition as one of the top graduates in her class. Now, 8 months into her deployment, she had proven herself in combat situations that tested every skill she had learned. Her shot record book contained entries for 43 confirmed enemy eliminations, each one a life saved on the American side and a threat removed from the battlefield. The responsibility was enormous, but Maria approached it with the same methodical precision she brought to cleaning her rifle. She closed the wall locker and headed toward the chow hall, her mind already focused on the mission planned for tomorrow. Intelligence reports suggested that enemy fighters had been placing improvised explosive devices along the main supply route used by American convoys. If the reports were accurate, Maria and her team would be tasked with identifying and eliminating the threat before more soldiers could be killed or wounded. The chow hall was filled with the usual breakfast crowd when Maria arrived. Soldiers from various units sat at long tables, eating eggs and bacon while discussing the day's planned activities. Conversations ranged from complaints about the heat to speculation about when they might rotate back to the United States. Maria took her tray and found a quiet corner where she could eat in peace. As she ate, Maria reviewed the mission details in her mind. The suspected IED team had been reported operating in an area of rough terrain approximately 12 kilometers from the base. Aerial reconnaissance had identified several possible observation points that would allow her to watch the main road while remaining concealed from enemy fighters. If the intelligence was correct, she might have the opportunity to prevent American casualties by eliminating the threat before it could strike. Lieutenant Sarah Thompson approached Maria's table carrying a folder of documents. As the platoon leader, Thompson was responsible for briefing soldiers on mission details and ensuring that everyone understood their roles and responsibilities. She was young for an officer, probably 25 years old, but she had earned the respect of her soldiers through competent leadership and genuine concern for their welfare. "Santos, I wanted to go over tomorrow's mission with you," Thompson said, sitting down across from Maria. "Intelligence has provided some additional details about the suspected IED team." Maria set down her fork and focused her attention on the lieutenant. Mission briefings were crucial for understanding the tactical situation and planning appropriate responses. Even small details could be important when making split-second decisions in combat situations. According to the latest reports, the enemy team consists of 4 to 6 individuals who have been placing devices along the road during early morning hours, Thompson explained. "They're using motorcycles to move quickly and avoid detection. We need to catch them in the act and eliminate the threat permanently." Maria nodded as she absorbed the information. Motorcycle-mounted enemy fighters presented unique challenges for snipers. The targets would be moving, making accurate shots more difficult. Additionally, the timing of their operations meant that Maria and her team would need to be in position well before dawn, requiring careful planning and preparation. "What's the terrain like around the target area?" Maria asked. Thompson opened the folder and spread several maps and photographs across the table. The images showed a stretch of road winding through rocky terrain, dotted with small hills and valleys. Several potential observation points were marked with red circles, indicating positions that would provide good fields of fire while offering concealment from enemy observation. "This hill here," Thompson said, pointing to a marked position on the map, "gives you about 800 meters of visibility along the road. Good concealment, multiple escape routes if you need to move quickly." Maria studied the topographical features carefully. The position offered excellent visibility of the target area, but it was also relatively close to the road. If enemy fighters detected her presence, they could potentially move to flank her position. She preferred longer-range engagements that kept her team well away from immediate danger. "What about this position?" Maria asked, indicating a hill further from the road. "It's about 1,200 meters from the target area, but it offers better protection and still provides good visibility." Thompson examined the position Maria had identified. The longer range would make shots more challenging, but it would also keep the sniper team well away from potential enemy reinforcements. Given Maria's demonstrated ability at extended ranges, the position made tactical sense. "That works," Thompson agreed. "You'll be inserted at 0300 hours and need to be in position before sunrise. If the intelligence is correct, the enemy team should arrive sometime between 0600 and 0800. Maria committed the timeline to memory. Getting into position before sunrise would require careful movement through unfamiliar terrain in darkness. She would need to study the maps thoroughly and plan the most efficient route to the observation point. Additionally, she would need to select appropriate equipment for the mission, including camouflage materials that matched the local terrain. After finishing breakfast, Maria spent the remainder of the morning preparing for the mission. She studied satellite photographs of the target area, memorizing terrain features and identifying potential hazards or complications. She also reviewed weather forecasts, paying particular attention to wind patterns that could affect her shots at the extended range. Equipment selection was crucial for a mission of this type. Maria chose her standard loadout, the Barrett M82A1 with 40 rounds of match-grade ammunition, her spotting scope, range-finding equipment, and sufficient camouflage materials to construct an effective hide site. She also included extra batteries for her radio and night vision equipment, along with emergency medical supplies and water for the extended operation. As the day progressed, Maria continued her preparations with the methodical attention to detail that characterized all her activities. Every piece of equipment was inspected and tested to ensure proper function. Ammunition was examined for defects or damage that could affect accuracy. Radio frequencies were verified and communications protocols reviewed with other members of the team. By evening, Maria felt confident that she was prepared for the mission ahead. Her gear was organized and ready, her weapon was clean and properly zeroed, and she had studied the tactical situation until she could visualize every aspect of the operation. Tomorrow would bring another test of her skills and training. Another opportunity to protect American soldiers by eliminating enemy threats. As she prepared for sleep, Maria reflected on the path that had brought her to this point. Growing up in a small town in Texas, she had learned to shoot on her family's ranch, hunting deer and wild hogs with her father and brothers. What had started as a necessary skill for ranch life had evolved into a natural talent that eventually led her to military service. Now half a world away from the Texas ranch where she had first learned to shoot, Maria Santos was preparing to use those same skills in defense of her fellow soldiers. Tomorrow would bring another chapter in a deployment that had already tested her abilities and resolve. But as she had every day for the past 8 months, she would be ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The pre-dawn darkness was absolute, as Maria Santos and her spotter, Corporal Jake Morrison, moved silently through the rocky terrain toward their observation point. Each step was carefully placed to avoid loose stones that might create noise, and both soldiers wore night vision goggles that turned the landscape into an eerie green wasteland. The Barrett M82A1 was strapped across Maria's back, its weight distributed by a specially designed carrying harness that allowed for extended movement without fatigue. They had been walking for 2 hours since leaving the forward patrol base, following a route Maria had memorized during her afternoon preparation. The terrain was more challenging than the maps had indicated, with hidden gullies and unexpected rock formations that forced several detours. But they were making good time, and Maria calculated they would reach their destination with more than an hour to spare before sunrise. Jake carried the team's spotting scope and range-finding equipment, along with extra ammunition for the Barrett. As Maria's designated spotter, His job was to identify targets, calculate range and wind corrections, and provide security, while Maria focused on making accurate shots. The two had worked together for 6 months and had developed the kind of wordless communication that made effective sniper teams deadly at extended ranges. 200 meters to the observation point, Jake whispered through his throat microphone. The radio system allowed them to communicate without making any sound that might alert enemy fighters to their presence. Maria acknowledged with a single click of her radio transmit button. Speaking was unnecessary and potentially dangerous in the final approach to their position. From this point forward, they would communicate only through hand signals and radio clicks unless an emergency required verbal communication. The observation point was a rocky outcropping that provided excellent visibility of the target road while offering natural camouflage and concealment. Maria had selected this position because it allowed shots at ranges between 800 and 1,500 meters, depending on where along the road enemy fighters might appear. The elevated position also provided multiple escape routes if they needed to relocate quickly. Maria and Jake spent 40 minutes constructing their hide site, carefully arranging rocks and sparse vegetation to create a position that would be invisible to enemy observation. The Barrett was positioned on a specially designed bipod that allowed for precise adjustments in elevation and windage. Maria tested her range of motion and confirmed that she could engage targets anywhere along the visible stretch of road. "Position complete," Jake reported through the radio net. "Ready for surveillance." Lieutenant Thompson acknowledged from the Tactical Operations Center back at the base. "Understood. Begin observation. Intelligence indicates target activity should commence within 2 hours." Maria settled into her firing position and began the methodical process of range estimation and environmental assessment that preceded every sniper engagement. Through her scope, she could see nearly 2 kilometers of road winding through the valley below. She identified specific landmarks and estimated ranges to various points along the route, creating a mental map that would allow for quick target engagement. The morning air was still, with minimal wind to affect bullet trajectory at extended ranges. Temperature was cool but rising as sunrise approached, which meant that atmospheric conditions would gradually change throughout the morning. Maria made note of these factors and prepared to adjust her calculations as conditions evolved. "Wind from the northwest at 5 kilometers per hour, Jake reported, reading from a small handheld weather station. Temperature 18 degrees Celsius and rising. Maria translated these conditions into the corrections she would need to make for shots at various ranges. Wind would have minimal effect at closer ranges, but could deflect bullets significantly at distances beyond 1,000 meters. Temperature affects air density, which in turn affects bullet trajectory. Every environmental factor had to be considered and calculated before taking a shot that might mean the difference between life and death for American soldiers. At 06:30 hours, Jake spotted movement on a hilltop approximately 3 kilometers from their position. Through his spotting scope, he could see several individuals with what appeared to be observation equipment watching the road below. The distance was too great for positive identification, but their behavior suggested they were part of the suspected IED team. "Possible enemy observation post, bearing 270 degrees, range 3,000 meters, Jake reported through the radio. "Confirmed," came the response from Lieutenant Thompson. "Continue observation. Do not engage unless they present an immediate threat to friendly forces." Maria adjusted her scope and located the suspected enemy position. The individuals were partially concealed but visible enough to confirm that they were watching the road through binoculars. Their presence confirmed intelligence reports about IED activity in the area, but they were beyond effective range of the Barrett at their current position. At 07:15 hours, the tactical situation changed dramatically. Jake spotted 4 motorcycles approaching from the north, moving slowly along a dirt track that paralleled the main road. Each motorcycle carried 2 riders, and they appeared to be carrying heavy packs, that could contain explosive devices or other equipment. Multiple targets, bearing 345 degrees, range 1,200 meters and closing, Jake reported. 4 motorcycles, 8 individuals, appears to be the IED team. Maria tracked the motorcycles through her scope as they moved toward the road. The range was decreasing steadily as they approached, bringing them into the optimal engagement zone for the Barrett. She calculated windage and elevation corrections for the anticipated interception point and prepared to engage on command. "This is Overwatch 6, came a new voice on the radio. "I have eyes on the target area. Engage when you have positive identification of hostile intent." Maria recognized the voice as belonging to Major William Hayes, the battalion executive officer who was monitoring the operation from an overhead reconnaissance aircraft. His presence indicated the importance of this mission and the high level of interest from senior leadership. The motorcycles reached the main road and stopped approximately 1,000 meters from Maria's position. Through her scope, she could see the riders dismounting and removing equipment from their packs. The activity was clearly suspicious, and when she observed one individual beginning to dig beside the road, the hostile intent became unmistakable. "Positive identification of IED emplacement activity," Maria reported. "Request permission to engage." "Permission granted," Lieutenant Thompson responded immediately. "Engage at will." Maria selected her first target, the individual who was actively digging beside the road. The range was 1,050 meters, requiring a slight elevation adjustment from her scope's 0 setting. Wind was still minimal, but from a slight angle that would require a minor windage correction. She made the adjustments and settled into her final firing position. "Target acquired, range 1,050 meters, wind correction 2 minutes left," she reported to Jake. "Confirmed," Jake responded, tracking the same target through his spotting scope. "Target is stationary, good visibility, clear shot." Maria controlled her breathing and began the final trigger sequence she had practiced thousands of times. The Barrett's trigger broke cleanly at exactly 4 pounds of pressure, and the massive rifle recoiled against her shoulder with tremendous force. The .50 caliber bullet crossed the distance to its target in just over 1 second, striking with devastating effect. "Target down," Jake confirmed, watching through his spotting scope as the enemy fighter collapsed beside the partially dug hole. The sound of the Barrett's shot echoed across the valley, immediately alerting the remaining enemy fighters to the presence of a sniper. Several individuals began running toward their motorcycles, while others sought cover among the rocks beside the road. Maria quickly acquired a second target, one of the fighters moving toward the motorcycles. Her second shot was taken at a moving target at slightly longer range, requiring her to lead the target's movement and adjust for the increased distance. The bullet struck the running fighter in the center of his torso, dropping him instantly. The remaining enemy fighters abandoned any pretense of completing their mission and began a chaotic retreat. "Multiple targets fleeing on motorcycles," Jake reported. "Range increasing rapidly." Maria tracked the fleeing motorcycles through her scope, but held her fire. The targets were moving erratically and at increasing range, making accurate shots difficult. More importantly, they were no longer presenting a threat to American forces, having abandoned their IED emplacement mission. "Cease fire," came the order from Lieutenant Thompson. "Targets are withdrawing from the area. Mission accomplished." Maria safed her weapon and began scanning the area for any additional threats. The immediate danger had passed, but enemy reinforcements might respond to the sound of gunfire. She and Jake would need to be prepared to relocate if the tactical situation deteriorated. "Overwatch 6 to ground team," Major Hayes called from his aircraft. "Outstanding shooting. I observed both engagements through optics and can confirm direct hits at extended range. Textbook sniper work." The praise from a field-grade officer was unusual and indicated that Maria's performance had been exceptional even by military standards. Most sniper engagements took place at shorter ranges under less challenging conditions. Her successful engagements at over 1,000 meters against targets that were partially concealed demonstrated a level of skill that few snipers possessed. "Ground team, this is Overwatch 6, Major Hayes continued. I want you to remain in position for 1 hour to ensure the area is clear, then extract to the patrol base. I'll be conducting a full debrief when you return." Maria acknowledged the order and settled back into her observation position. The mission had been successful beyond expectations, eliminating the IED threat and preventing potential casualties among American forces. But she knew that Major Hayes' interest in debriefing her personally suggested that her performance had attracted attention from higher levels of command. During the next hour, Maria and Jake maintained vigilant observation of the target area. No additional enemy activity was detected, and the abandoned motorcycles remained where they had been left beside the road. An explosive ordnance disposal team would be dispatched to investigate the partially constructed IED and ensure that no additional devices had been placed in the area. At 0830 hours, Maria and Jake began their movement back toward the patrol base. The terrain that had been challenging to navigate in darkness was easier to traverse in daylight, but they maintained careful noise discipline and tactical awareness throughout the return journey. Enemy fighters might still be in the area, and complacency after a successful mission had cost soldiers their lives in the past. They reached the patrol base at 10:45 hours and immediately began the post-mission routine of cleaning weapons and conducting equipment maintenance. Maria stripped down the Barrett and began a thorough cleaning, paying particular attention to the barrel and bolt assembly. 2 shots in combat conditions required immediate cleaning to prevent corrosion or fouling that might affect future accuracy. "Santos, Morrison, report to the briefing room in 30 minutes, Lieutenant Thompson announced as she approached their position. "Major Hayes wants to conduct the debrief personally." Maria nodded as she continued cleaning her rifle. Personal debriefs with field-grade officers were uncommon for enlisted soldiers, particularly for routine missions. The fact that Major Hayes had observed her shots from aircraft and specifically requested the debrief suggested that her performance had been noteworthy. Jake began cleaning his spotting scope and range-finding equipment while speculating about the unusual interest from senior leadership. "Maybe they're looking for snipers for special assignment," he suggested. "Word gets around when someone can shoot like you do." Maria completed her weapon cleaning and secured the Barrett in its case before heading to her wall locker to store her gear. As she organized her equipment, she reflected on the morning's engagement. Both shots had been successful, but she analyzed them critically to identify areas for improvement. The first shot had been ideal, with perfect conditions and a stationary target. The second shot had been more challenging due to target movement, but her lead calculation had been accurate. At exactly 11:15 hours, Maria and Jake reported to the briefing room where Major Hayes was waiting with Lieutenant Thompson and Captain Rodriguez, the company commander. The presence of 3 officers for a routine debrief was unusual and confirmed that the morning's mission had attracted significant attention. "Take a seat," Major Hayes said, gesturing to chairs arranged around a small conference table. The major was in his early 40s with the weathered appearance of a career infantry officer who had spent considerable time in combat zones. His reputation as a competent leader was well known throughout the battalion. "I want to start by saying that your performance this morning was exceptional," Major Hayes began. "I observed both engagements through high-powered optics from the aircraft, and I can confirm that your shots were accurate and effective at extended range under challenging conditions." Maria acknowledged the praise with a simple, "Thank you, sir," while maintaining her professional bearing. She understood that exceptional performance often led to additional responsibilities or special assignments, and she wondered what the major had in mind. "Staff Sergeant Santos, I've reviewed your training records and combat performance since arriving at this base," Major Hayes continued. "Your shooting scores are consistently outstanding, and your combat record shows 45 confirmed eliminations in 8 months of deployment. That's remarkable for any sniper, particularly someone early in their military career." The major opened a folder containing what appeared to be Maria's personnel file and training records. He studied the documents for a moment before continuing with the debrief. "I'm particularly interested in your advanced marksmanship training in specialized schools," he said. "You graduated third in your sniper class and first in advanced precision shooting. Your instructors noted exceptional ability at extended range and recommended you for specialized assignment upon completion of your current deployment." Maria listened carefully as the major reviewed her background and training. She had been unaware that her instructors had made recommendations for future assignments, and she wondered what opportunities might be available for soldiers with her demonstrated abilities. "There's going to be a change in command ceremony next week," Major Hayes said. "Brigadier General Patricia Morrison will be assuming command of the brigade, and she's specifically interested in meeting soldiers who have distinguished themselves through exceptional performance. I'm recommending you for recognition at that ceremony." The mention of a general officer wanting to meet her personally was surprising and somewhat intimidating. Maria had never interacted with officers above the rank of colonel, and the prospect of meeting a brigade commander was both an honor and a source of anxiety. "Sir, what kind of recognition?" Lieutenant Thompson asked. "General Morrison has a particular interest in marksmanship and sniper operations," Major Hayes explained. "She was a competitive shooter before joining the Army and understands the level of skill required for precision shooting at extended ranges. When she reviews combat performance records for this deployment, Staff Sergeant Santos's achievements will definitely catch her attention." Maria absorbed this information while maintaining her professional composure. Recognition from a general officer could open doors to specialized training or assignment opportunities, but it also meant increased scrutiny and expectations. She would need to be prepared to discuss her training, combat experience, and career goals if called upon to brief senior leadership. "The ceremony is scheduled for next Friday," Major Hayes continued. "I want you to prepare a brief summary of your combat engagements and training background. Nothing elaborate. Just a professional overview that demonstrates your competence and dedication." The meeting concluded with additional details about the upcoming ceremony and expectations for Maria's participation. As the officers departed, Maria was left to contemplate the implications of the unexpected recognition. 8 months ago, she had been just another newly trained sniper arriving for her first combat deployment. Now, her performance had attracted attention from the highest levels of military leadership. That evening, as Maria conducted her usual weapon maintenance routine, she reflected on the path that had led to this moment. Each successful engagement, each perfectly placed shot, and each life saved through accurate marksmanship had contributed to a reputation that was now reaching far beyond her immediate unit. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and responsibilities, but she felt prepared to meet whatever expectations might be placed upon her. The Barrett M82A1 gleamed under the overhead lights as Maria completed her cleaning routine. This rifle had been her constant companion through 8 months of combat operations, and together they had proven capable of meeting every challenge presented. As she prepared for sleep, Maria knew that the coming week would bring new opportunities to demonstrate the skills and dedication that had already distinguished her among her peers. The recognition was gratifying, but Maria remained focused on her primary mission, protecting American soldiers through precise, effective marksmanship. Whether facing enemy fighters at extended range or briefing senior officers about her experiences, she would approach each task with the same methodical preparation and attention to detail that characterized everything she did. The Barrett would be ready, and so would she. Friday morning arrived with the usual desert heat, but forward operating base Scorpion buzzed with an energy that Maria Santos had never experienced during her 8 months of deployment. Soldiers hurried between buildings with freshly pressed uniforms and polished boots, preparing for the change of command ceremony that would officially transfer brigade leadership to Brigadier General Patricia Morrison. Maria stood before her wall locker, carefully reviewing her dress uniform one final time. Every ribbon was perfectly aligned. Her boots reflected the overhead lights like black mirrors, and her expert marksmanship badge gleamed against the dark blue fabric. But it was the folder in her hands that commanded her attention. Major Hayes had requested a summary of her combat performance, and Maria had spent the previous evening preparing a concise but comprehensive overview of her achievements during the deployment. The document contained details of 47 confirmed enemy eliminations, including precise ranges, environmental conditions, and tactical circumstances for each engagement. Her longest confirmed shot remained the 1,600-meter elimination that had stopped an enemy sniper from targeting American patrols near Checkpoint Delta. Her shortest had been a 300-meter shot that neutralized a suicide bomber before he could reach a convoy of supply vehicles. "You ready for this, Santos?" Corporal Jake Morrison asked as he adjusted his own uniform. The ceremony would recognize several soldiers for exceptional performance, but Major Hayes had made it clear that Maria's marksmanship achievements would receive special attention from the incoming brigade commander. "As ready as anyone can be for briefing a general," Maria replied, securing the performance summary in her jacket pocket. She had practiced her presentation several times, focusing on clear, concise delivery that demonstrated both her competence and her professionalism. General Morrison's background as a competitive shooter meant she would understand the technical aspects of precision marksmanship and appreciate accurate, detailed information. The ceremony was scheduled for 1,000 hours on the parade ground, a flat area of packed dirt that had been cleared of vehicles and equipment for the occasion. Chairs were arranged in precise rows for the attending officers and senior non-commissioned officers, while junior enlisted soldiers would stand in formation behind them. A small platform had been constructed for the speakers, with American and unit flags providing a backdrop for the proceedings. Maria joined her unit's formation at 09:45 hours, taking her position among the other soldiers being recognized for exceptional performance. Staff Sergeant Miguel Torres from the Explosives Ordnance Disposal Unit would receive an Army Commendation Medal for his work clearing improvised explosive devices. Sergeant First Class David Park from the Medical Platoon was being recognized for treating wounded soldiers under fire during an ambush near the village of Sorobi. But according to Major Hayes, Maria's recognition would be different. General Morrison had specifically requested to review the performance records of all snipers in the brigade, and Maria's achievements had immediately caught her attention. The general wanted to personally discuss Maria's training background and combat experience, a level of individual attention that was unusual for soldiers at Maria's rank. At exactly 1,000 hours, the ceremony began with the arrival of the outgoing brigade commander, Colonel James Patterson, and the incoming commander, Brigadier General Patricia Morrison. As the senior officers took their positions on the platform, Maria got her first close look at the woman who would soon be leading the brigade. General Morrison was shorter than Maria had expected, perhaps 5 feet 6 inches tall, but she carried herself with the confident bearing of a career military officer. Her uniform was immaculate, and Maria noticed that her marksmanship badges included several that indicated advanced training and competitive shooting achievements. At 48 years old, General Morrison had served in combat zones throughout her career and had earned a reputation as an innovative leader who valued individual soldier performance. The change of command ceremony proceeded according to military tradition, with formal speeches from both commanders and the presentation of the unit colors to symbolize the transfer of authority. Colonel Patterson spoke about the brigade's achievements during his command, highlighting successful operations and the dedication of soldiers serving in challenging conditions. When General Morrison took the podium to deliver her first address as brigade commander, Maria listened carefully to understand the general's leadership philosophy and priorities. The general's speaking style was direct and confident, emphasizing her commitment to supporting soldiers and ensuring they had the resources needed to accomplish their missions. Excellence in military performance comes from individual soldiers who dedicate themselves to mastering their skills and equipment, General Morrison said, scanning the assembled formation. Every successful operation, every life saved, every mission accomplished depends on soldiers who refuse to accept mediocrity in their professional duties. The general's words resonated with Maria, who had always believed that exceptional performance required extraordinary commitment to training and preparation. Her daily routine of weapon maintenance and equipment inspection reflected the same philosophy that General Morrison was describing to the assembled soldiers. After the formal ceremony concluded, Major Hayes approached Maria with instructions to report to the brigade headquarters building for her individual meeting with General Morrison. The building was a temporary structure constructed from prefabricated components, but it housed the command and control facilities that coordinated military operations throughout the region. Maria was escorted to a small conference room where General Morrison was reviewing documents with her aide-de-camp, a young captain who served as her primary assistant and liaison with subordinate units. The aide announced Maria's arrival, and General Morrison looked up from her paperwork with the focused attention of a senior officer evaluating a subordinate. "Staff Sergeant Santos, please take a seat," General Morrison said, gesturing to a chair across from her position at the conference table. "I've been reviewing your performance records, and I wanted to discuss your achievements personally." Maria sat down and assumed an attentive posture, prepared to answer questions about her training and combat experience. The general opened a thick folder containing what appeared to be comprehensive documentation of Maria's military service, including training records, performance evaluations, and detailed combat reports. "Major Hayes provided me with a summary of your recent engagement against the IED team," General Morrison began. "2 confirmed eliminations at ranges exceeding 1,000 meters, both first-round hits under challenging conditions. That's exceptional shooting by any standard." "Thank you, ma'am," Maria replied, maintaining her professional bearing despite feeling honored by the recognition from such a senior officer. "My spotter, Corporal Morrison, provided excellent support during that engagement." General Morrison smiled slightly at Maria's deflection of individual credit to her team member. "That's the mark of a professional soldier," she said. "But I'm particularly interested in your individual achievements. 47 confirmed eliminations in 8 months represents extraordinary performance for any sniper." The general began reviewing specific entries from Maria's combat record, asking detailed questions about ranges, environmental conditions, and tactical circumstances. Her questions demonstrated a thorough understanding of precision marksmanship that confirmed her reputation as a knowledgeable shooter. Maria answered each question with precise, factual information that demonstrated both her competence and her attention to detail. "Your longest confirmed shot was at 1,600 meters, General Morrison observed, reading from the performance summary. "Tell me about the conditions and circumstances of that engagement." Maria described the mission in detail, explaining how she had identified an enemy sniper who was targeting American patrols from a concealed position on a distant ridgeline. The shot had required careful calculation of wind conditions, bullet trajectory, and target movement, as well as precise execution under time pressure. The enemy sniper had already wounded 2 soldiers and was repositioning to engage additional targets, Maria explained. The range was at the extreme limit of the Barrett's effective capability, but eliminating the threat was critical to protecting our patrol. General Morrison nodded approvingly as she listened to Maria's account. "That shot prevented additional casualties among our soldiers," she said. "That's exactly the kind of performance that makes the difference between successful and unsuccessful operations." The general continued reviewing Maria's records, paying particular attention to her training background and marksmanship achievements. She questioned Maria about her civilian shooting experience, her performance during military sniper training, and her ongoing efforts to maintain and improve her skills. "I see that you graduated 3rd in your sniper class, but 1st in the advanced precision shooting course," General Morrison noted. What made the difference in the advanced training? Maria considered the question carefully before responding. The advanced course focused on extended-range shooting and environmental calculations, she explained. I had more experience with those skills from hunting and competitive shooting before joining the Army. General Morrison leaned back in her chair and regarded Maria thoughtfully. Staff Sergeant Santos, I'm going to be direct with you about why I wanted this meeting. The Army is developing a new precision marksmanship program that will provide specialized training and equipment to exceptional shooters. Based on your demonstrated performance, I want to recommend you for selection. The announcement was unexpected and represented an opportunity that could significantly impact Maria's military career. Specialized programs typically led to advanced training, better equipment, and assignment to elite units where exceptional skills were most valued. The program is designed for soldiers who have demonstrated exceptional ability at extended-range precision shooting, General Morrison continued. Participants will receive advanced training, access to experimental equipment, and assignment to units where their skills can be most effectively utilized. Maria listened carefully as the general described the program requirements and selection criteria. Participants would need to complete additional training courses, demonstrate consistent performance under various conditions, and commit to extended military service. The opportunities were significant, but so were the responsibilities and expectations. I'm honored by your consideration, ma'am, Maria said. Could you provide more details about the training requirements and assignment locations? General Morrison opened another folder containing program documentation and began describing the advanced training curriculum. The course would include instruction in ballistics theory, advanced environmental calculation, exotic ammunition types, and specialized equipment operation. Students would also receive training in reconnaissance techniques and unconventional warfare tactics. The training is conducted at Fort Benning and lasts 6 months, the general explained. Upon completion, graduates are typically assigned to special operations units or specialized reconnaissance teams where their skills are most needed. Maria absorbed this information while considering the implications for her career and personal goals. Assignment to special operations units would provide opportunities for challenging missions and professional advancement. But it would also mean extended deployments and separation from family and friends. What's the timeline for applications? Maria asked. Applications are due within 30 days, General Morrison replied. I've already discussed your qualifications with the selection board, and they're very interested in your candidacy. Your combat performance record speaks for itself. The general closed the folders and regarded Maria with the expression of a senior leader evaluating a promising subordinate. Staff Sergeant Santos, in 25 years of military service, I've rarely seen marksmanship achievements that match your performance. The Army needs soldiers with your abilities in specialized roles where they can make the greatest impact. Maria felt the weight of the general's confidence and expectations. The opportunity represented recognition of her achievements and a chance to serve in roles where her skills could protect more soldiers and accomplish more important missions. But it also meant committing to a career path that would demand even greater dedication and sacrifice. I would like to apply for the program, ma'am, Maria said after considering her decision. My goal has always been to serve where my skills can be most effective in protecting other soldiers. General Morrison nodded approvingly and made a note in her paperwork. I'll forward your application with my personal recommendation, she said. The selection board will review your records and interview candidates next month. Based on your performance, I'm confident you'll be accepted. The meeting concluded with additional details about the application process and timeline for training. As Maria prepared to leave, General Morrison offered some final advice about preparing for the selection process and advanced training requirements. Continue doing exactly what you've been doing, the general said. Maintain your equipment, practice your skills, and document your performance. The selection board will be looking for soldiers who demonstrate consistent excellence over time. Maria left the meeting feeling both honored and motivated by the opportunity that had been presented. The recognition from General Morrison validated years of dedication to perfecting her marksmanship skills, but it also represented the beginning of new challenges and responsibilities. That evening, as Maria conducted her usual weapon maintenance routine, she reflected on the day's events and the opportunities that lay ahead. The Barrett M82A1 had been her companion through 47 successful engagements, and together they had proven capable of meeting every challenge presented. Now they would face new tests and higher standards as she pursued advanced training and specialized assignments. She opened her shot record book and made a final entry for the deployment, noting the meeting with General Morrison and her acceptance into the advanced marksmanship program. The small green notebook contained 8 months of detailed performance records that had caught the attention of senior leadership and opened doors to opportunities she had never imagined. As she prepared for sleep, Maria thought about the path that had led from a small ranch in Texas to a meeting with a brigade commander in Afghanistan. Her dedication to excellence and refusal to accept mediocrity had been recognized by the highest levels of military leadership. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and preparations for the next phase of her career, but she felt ready to meet whatever expectations might be placed upon her. The Barrett gleamed under the overhead lights, clean and ready for whatever missions lay ahead. Maria Santos had proven herself through 8 months of combat operations, and now she would have the opportunity to take her skills to even higher levels of performance and responsibility. The general had seen something in her records that marked her as exceptional, and Maria was determined to prove that confidence was well placed. Her journey as a precision marksman was far from over. In fact, as she closed the shot record book and secured her equipment for the night, Maria realized it was just beginning. The skills she had developed and the reputation she had earned would open doors to training and assignments that few soldiers ever experienced. She would be ready for whatever challenges and opportunities awaited her in the advanced marksmanship program and beyond.